My name is Sabrina Whitaker. I'm 34 years old. And until last year, I genuinely believed I had found the man I would spend the rest of my life with. I always imagined betrayal would arrive like a storm. I thought there would be screaming, tears, doors slamming, maybe even broken dishes. Instead, it arrived in complete silence. And somehow, that silence hurt even more. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. I was working from home, syncing files between my laptop and tablet, when a notification appeared on the shared device Nathan used whenever his phone battery died. He had forgotten to log out. Normally, I respected privacy, but when I saw the sender's name, my stomach tightened. Lauren Hayes, his ex-girlfriend, the woman he had repeatedly described as toxic, the woman he promised was completely out of his life. Without thinking, I opened the conversation. I wish I hadn't, but at the same time, I thank God every day that I did. The latest messages sat there on the screen like tiny bombs. Lauren wrote, "He's still talking about the inheritance all the time. House plans. Future plans. It's exhausting." Nathan replied, "Don't worry, Baba. I won't be stuck much longer." Then came the message that shattered everything I thought I knew. "I'm just waiting for her inheritance. Then I'm yours. Promise." I stared at those words for what felt like an eternity. My chest became heavy. My hands turned cold. The apartment around me suddenly felt unfamiliar. I looked at our framed vacation photos, the expensive coffee machine he begged me to buy, the couch we'd chosen together. Everything looked fake, like props on a movie set. Oddly enough, I wasn't angry. Not immediately. I felt something much worse. Clarity. Because that message told me something terrifying. Nathan wasn't confused. He wasn't unhappy. He wasn't struggling. He had a plan. And if he had a plan, then I needed one too. For the next 3 days, I became the perfect girlfriend. I cooked his favorite meals. I listened when he talked about work. I laughed at his jokes. And while he believed everything was normal, I observed him, the way his eyes drifted whenever I mentioned our future. The secret smiles after certain text messages, the way he suddenly guarded his phone. I felt like I was watching behind-the-scenes footage of a performance, and I hated how convincing he had been. The inheritance itself was real. 6 months earlier, my grandmother had passed away. She had left me enough money to finally buy a house. Not mansion money. Not billionaire money. Just enough for a modest life. Enough to stop renting. Enough to build something stable. I remember telling Nathan about it the day I learned the news. He wrapped me in his arms. He smiled. He kissed my forehead. His eyes widened with excitement. At the time, I thought he was happy for us. Now I realized he had only been happy for himself. That's when I decided to test him. On Friday morning, I downloaded a sample bankruptcy notice online. I changed the names, created a fake case number, invented a fictional law office. Then I placed the document on my desk, where it could easily be found. Not hidden, not obvious, just visible enough. That evening, I went for a long run. I needed to breathe. I needed to think. I needed a world that consisted only of my footsteps and the sound of air filling my lungs. The sun had already begun setting when I returned. And the moment I opened the front door, I knew the apartment felt empty. Too empty. Nathan was gone. Completely gone. No goodbye. No conversation. No explanation. Only a folded note waiting on the kitchen counter. My hands shook as I opened it. "I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore. The financial instability is too much pressure. I need space to figure things out. I wish you the best." That was it. 2 years together, reduced to 4 sentences. I sat on the living room floor surrounded by silence. Not crying. Not screaming. Just staring. Because somehow, the speed of his departure hurt more than the betrayal itself. He hadn't fought for us. He hadn't even hesitated. The second he believed I had become worthless, he disappeared. And that confirmed everything. For weeks, I heard nothing. I boxed his belongings, untangled subscriptions, deleted photos I couldn't bear to look at. I grieved the man I thought I loved, not the man he actually was. Then one morning, my grandmother's inheritance finally cleared, and the little house I'd always wanted was still available. A small 2-bedroom home with a front porch and an overgrown backyard. The same house Nathan and I had once dreamed about together, only now, it wasn't ours. It was mine. As a cash buyer. The process moved quickly. 3 weeks later, I stood in front of my new home holding the keys. The evening breeze smelled like fresh grass and possibility. I sat on the porch steps and took a simple picture. Just me. One key, one smile. I posted it with 2 words. New beginnings. I tagged nobody. 7 minutes later, my phone rang. Nathan. I ignored it. It rang again. Then again. Texts started arriving. Then another number called. I let it go to voicemail. When I listened later, I froze. It was Lauren, and judging by the panic in her voice, something had gone terribly wrong. The calls didn't stop after that first night. If anything, they became background noise to my new life. While I unpacked dishes in my kitchen and assembled bookshelves in the living room, my phone vibrated endlessly across the counter. At first, Nathan's messages sounded concerned. Sabrina, please call me. I saw your post. I'm worried. What happened with that bankruptcy notice? Then the tone changed. Sabrina, this isn't funny. Answer me. We need to talk right now. Lauren's voicemails were completely different. She didn't even try to hide her anger. How could you lie to him? You're manipulative. You played with people's emotions. Listening to her defend the man who had promised to abandon me for her would have been hilarious if it hadn't been so pathetic. I saved every voicemail, every text, every missed call. Something deep inside me told me I might need them later. 3 days after moving into my house, I was unpacking boxes in the living room. When I finally answered, Nathan picked up before the first ring finished. Oh my God. Sabrina, he exclaimed. You're okay. The fake relief in his voice almost made me laugh. I was worried sick. Were you? I asked quietly. Of course I was. I saw that bankruptcy notice. And then you vanished. Now, suddenly you have a house. What is going on? I cut open another box with a utility knife. You left me. Nathan. Silence. Then came the excuse. I left because I was scared. I thought you were ruined. How could you lie to me like that? There it was. The twist. Suddenly, I was the villain. Not the man who promised another woman my inheritance. Not the boyfriend who abandoned me overnight. Me? I looked around my living room. Sunlight poured through the windows. Everything felt peaceful. And for the first time in weeks, I realized I wasn't afraid anymore. The note you left was pretty clear. I said calmly. You said financial instability was too much pressure. Those were your words. That's not fair. He snapped. I invested 2 years into this relationship. I supported you. We planned together. I almost laughed. You searched Zillow listings. Nathan. That's not exactly building a future. His voice rose. I was your partner. That house should have been ours. You don't get to take everything for yourself. I stopped unpacking, because that sentence revealed exactly who he was. Not once had he said he missed me. Not once had he said he loved me. Not once had he apologized. His only concern was ownership, money, assets, entitlement. I let the silence stretch. Then I quietly said the words I had waited weeks to say. I saw your messages with Lauren. Nothing. Not even breathing. 10 full seconds passed. Then chaos erupted. It's not what you think. We were just talking. She's an old friend. You've been distant lately. I felt confused. You pushed me away. Excuse after excuse. Lie after lie. But none of them mattered. You were waiting for my inheritance. I said softly. And then you planned to go back to her. Another silence. Then the line disconnected. He hung up. An hour later, the attacks started. Lauren appeared underneath my house photo on Instagram. Don't believe her. She's manipulative. Everything is a lie. Several mutual friends texted me. What happened? Are you okay? Why is Lauren saying these things? I didn't answer anyone. I simply deleted the comments, blocked Lauren, and continued assembling my dining table. Then Nathan sent another text. This one made me smile. I'm talking to a lawyer. You emotionally manipulated me. You'll be hearing from my attorney. I read it twice, then burst out laughing. Because greed had completely blinded him. He truly believed he was the victim. That night, I removed him from everything. Netflix, Spotify, Amazon, shared passwords, cloud storage, one click at a time. It felt like removing poison from my life. Before bed, I remembered something else. The apartment security deposit, $2,850. I called our former landlord the next morning. He sounded uncomfortable. Sabrina. I thought you already knew. My stomach dropped. Knew what? The deposit was already collected. By Nathan. I nearly dropped the phone. Apparently, the day after he left me, he visited the management office. Since his name remained on the lease, he claimed I had authorized him to handle everything. He signed the paperwork, collected the entire amount, and disappeared. The landlord apologized repeatedly, but legally, there was nothing he could do. It has become a civil matter. Of course it had. I sat in my office staring at the wall, and something inside me changed. Up until that moment, I had been grieving, missing the relationship, missing the future I thought I had. But hearing about the stolen deposit ended that. The sadness hardened. It became purpose. This wasn't about heartbreak anymore. It was about accountability. That same afternoon, I started building a file. First, I printed the breakup letter. Then I printed screenshots of the messages between Nathan and Lauren. I highlighted certain lines. I'm waiting for her inheritance. I can't wait much longer. I'm yours. Then I created a timeline. Date of my grandmother's passing. Date. Nathan abandoned me. Date. The inheritance actually arrived. Everything. The facts spoke for themselves. Next, I drafted a formal demand letter. Professional. Polite. Cold. Nathan had 14 days to return my portion of the security deposit before I filed a claim. I sent it through certified mail and emailed him a copy. I expected anger. What I didn't expect was his response. 3 hours later, he texted only 4 words. You'll regret this. For some reason, reading those words gave me chills. Not because I was afraid, but because I suddenly realized something. Nathan wasn't done, and neither was Lauren. Whatever came next, they were going to fight. They just didn't understand one thing. I was done protecting people who had never protected me. 2 weeks later, the official envelope arrived in my mailbox. I stood in my kitchen, holding it while morning sunlight poured across the counter. For a second, I honestly hoped I was wrong. Maybe Nathan had finally sent the money. Maybe he had come to his senses. But the moment I opened the envelope, I almost laughed. He had actually done it. Nathan Carter had filed a small claims lawsuit against me. $5,000. According to his filing, he deserved compensation for future planning contributions and emotional damages caused by my deceptive conduct. He accused me of manipulating him psychologically. He claimed I had intentionally created emotional distress. He painted himself as the victim. The audacity would have been impressive if it wasn't so absurd. I sat at my kitchen table and read every page carefully. Not once did I feel angry, because people like Nathan always made the same mistake. They confused confidence with intelligence, and greed with entitlement. I opened my evidence folder and simply added another document. The file was growing thicker. Breakup note, screenshots, timeline, voicemails, threatening texts. Every piece fit together like a puzzle. Meanwhile, the 14-day deadline for the stolen security deposit expired. No payment arrived. No apology. No explanation. Instead, Nathan emailed me. You gave me that money? You know you did. I smiled when I read it. Because lies always require maintenance, truth doesn't. I immediately prepared a counterclaim. Not because of the amount, $2,850 wasn't life-changing. But principles matter, and if Nathan wanted court, then court was exactly what he would get. Life continued while I prepared. I decorated my house, planted flowers, painted the guest bedroom. Slowly, the empty space inside me began filling with something unexpected. Peace. Not happiness. Not yet. But peace? Then everything became personal again. I was leaving my office building downtown one evening when I heard someone shouting my name. Sabrina. I turned. Lauren Hayes was practically running across the plaza toward me. She looked furious. Her face was red. Her eyes blazed with self-righteous anger. She stopped directly in front of me. "We need to talk," she snapped. She intentionally stepped closer, trying to intimidate me, trying to dominate the conversation. But she underestimated one thing. People who survive betrayal stop being afraid. "We have nothing to discuss." I replied, "Oh yes, we do. You humiliated Nathan. You're sick. Who fakes bankruptcy? Who plays games like that?" I looked at her calmly. The only people playing games were the two people promising each other a future with my inheritance. She scoffed. "He invested years in you. You owe him something." I almost laughed. "The only thing anyone owes me is my security deposit." At that, a smug smile appeared on her face. It wasn't subtle. It was the smile of someone who believed she'd already won. "He told me you gave him permission," she said. "Who do you think the judge will believe?" Then she leaned closer. "He deserves compensation after everything he tolerated." Everything he tolerated? Those words told me everything. Nathan hadn't simply lied to me. He had lied about me. He had spent months turning himself into the victim inside their little fantasy, and Lauren believed every word. Or maybe she simply wanted to believe them. Either way, she had just revealed something important. They had coordinated their story. I nodded thoughtfully. "Interesting perspective," I said. Then I walked away. She looked confused, almost disappointed. She expected tears, anger, a fight. Instead, I climbed into my car and immediately emailed myself detailed notes. Date, time, location, everything she had said, every exact phrase. Years earlier, my grandmother used to tell me something. Write things down. Sweetheart, memories fade. Evidence doesn't. That advice suddenly felt priceless. Unfortunately, the drama didn't stay private. Nathan had apparently been busy. Mutual friends stopped reaching out. Invitations disappeared. People who once laughed with me suddenly became distant. Eventually, I learned why. According to Nathan, I had suffered a mental breakdown. He claimed I created fake financial disasters to control him emotionally. He told people I threw him out. He told them I became obsessed, manipulative, unstable. Some people believed him. And I won't lie. That hurt. Not losing strangers. Losing people I thought knew me. Being rewritten as the villain in your own story creates a unique kind of loneliness. There were nights I sat alone on my porch, wondering if defending myself was even worth it. Maybe I should explain. Maybe I should expose everything online. Maybe I should send screenshots to everyone. But every time I picked up my phone, I stopped. Because the truth doesn't need desperation. And deep down, I trusted something. Eventually, facts win. Not immediately. Not dramatically. But eventually. One evening, while watering my new garden, my neighbor Margaret wandered over with 2 cups of lemonade. She was in her 60s, widowed, warm, the kind of woman who remembered everyone's birthday. She handed me a glass. "You know," she said gently, "quiet people often get mistaken for weak people." I smiled. My grandmother used to say something similar. Margaret looked at me for a long moment. "Then your grandmother was probably very wise." That conversation stayed with me. Because she was right. I wasn't weak. I was simply tired. And tired people eventually heal. The hearing date arrived sooner than expected. The night before court, I sat at my dining table, reviewing my evidence one final time. Every document was organized, every screenshot labeled, every timeline complete. I should have been nervous. Instead, I felt strangely calm, because for the first time in months, I realized something. I wasn't afraid of losing. I had already survived. The worst part, loving someone who never truly loved me back. Everything else was just paperwork. The morning of the hearing felt strangely ordinary. The sky was clear, traffic was light, and somehow, that normalcy made everything feel surreal. I arrived at the courthouse 20 minutes early. The room itself was nothing impressive. Fluorescent lights, worn chairs, beige walls that looked like they hadn't been updated in decades. And sitting together near the front were Nathan and Lauren. Seeing them side by side almost felt poetic. The two people who had secretly planned a future together, while using me as a stepping stone. Nathan was dressed in a navy suit. Lauren wore a cream-colored blouse and carried herself like someone preparing to witness justice. Neither of them looked worried. In fact, when Nathan spotted me, he actually smiled, not warmly, confidently, like a man already imagining victory. For a brief moment, I remembered the old Nathan, the man who used to bring me coffee in bed, the man who held my hand at my grandmother's funeral, the man I thought loved me. But that man no longer existed, or maybe he never had. Eventually, the judge entered. She was a woman in her 60s, with silver hair and sharp eyes. The kind of person who looked like she had heard every excuse humanity could invent. Nathan went first. And honestly, I almost admired the performance. He spoke emotionally. He described the psychological damage I had caused. He talked about trust, about the future we had planned together, about how my fake bankruptcy notice devastated him. At one point, his voice even cracked. Lauren nodded supportively from her seat. To anyone unfamiliar with the truth, he looked convincing. Then it was my turn. I didn't give a speech. I didn't cry. I didn't attack him. I simply opened my folder. Exhibit A, I said quietly. The breakup letter, written by Mr. Plaisance. Carter. I handed copies to the judge. She read silently. Then I continued. Mr. Carter stated he was ending the relationship because financial instability created too much pressure. I placed another document forward. Exhibit B. Messages exchanged between Mr. Carter and Ms. Hayes 1 week before the breakup. The room became very quiet. I read one message aloud. I'm just waiting for her inheritance. Then I'm yours. The judge slowly lifted her eyes. For the first time that morning, Nathan's confidence vanished. Lauren shifted uncomfortably in her chair. I continued. Exhibit C. Bank records showing my inheritance had not yet been deposited when Mr. Carter ended the relationship. The judge studied the documents carefully. Then she looked directly at Nathan. Mr. Carter, she said calmly. Is this your conversation? Nathan swallowed. It looks bad out of context. Yes or no? His face turned pale. Yes. That single word ended everything. The judge closed the file. Your claim is dismissed. Then her expression hardened. With prejudice. Nathan blinked. Lauren's mouth actually fell open. The judge continued. This court will not reward opportunistic behavior, nor will it entertain claims rooted in deception. Nathan sat frozen. But the hearing wasn't over. Because now, it was my turn. I presented my counterclaim regarding the security deposit. Nathan immediately repeated the same story. He gave me permission. He said I could keep it. The judge nodded thoughtfully. Then, she looked toward Lauren. Ms. Hayes, were you aware of this arrangement? Lauren eagerly answered. Yes. Nathan told me, Sabrina agreed. The judge leaned forward slightly. So your testimony is based entirely on what Mr. Carter told you? Lauren hesitated. Well? Yes. I then presented the email I had written to myself after our confrontation. Detailed notes, time stamp, exact statements, everything. I explained how Lauren had proudly informed me that they expected the judge to believe their story. The judge's eyes narrowed. The contradiction was obvious. Their confidence had become their downfall. After several moments, she announced her ruling. I would receive the full amount of my portion of the security deposit, plus filing fees. Nathan's face turned bright red. Lauren looked furious. And the moment we stepped outside the courtroom, their perfect partnership exploded. "You told me this would work," Lauren shouted. Nathan fired back immediately. "You said she'd never have proof." They stood there blaming each other, while people walked past, pretending not to stare. I simply kept walking, because their argument no longer belonged to me. Over the next several weeks, something interesting happened. Truth traveled. Slowly, quietly. But it traveled. Friends who had disappeared began sending awkward messages. "I'm sorry. I didn't know. I should have asked your side." I answered politely, but I didn't chase old relationships. Some bridges, once burned, don't need rebuilding. A few weeks later, I heard through mutual acquaintances that Lauren's aggressive behavior had created problems at work. Apparently, reputation mattered more than she realized. As for Nathan, I never saw him again. The final message he sent arrived after the judgment check appeared in my mailbox. "I hope you're happy alone in that stupid house. You ruined my life." I read the message once, and felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no sadness. Just silence. He had become a stranger. I deleted the text, blocked his number, and walked outside. It's been several months now. The backyard, that was once overgrown, has transformed into a garden. Tomatoes, lavender, sunflowers. Every morning, birds wake me before my alarm. Sometimes I sit on the porch with coffee and think about how different my life looks now. The scar remains. I think it always will. But scars aren't wounds. They're proof that healing happened. I never needed Nathan and Lauren to suffer some dramatic downfall. I only needed them to experience the natural consequences of their choices. They weren't masterminds. They weren't villains from a movie. They were simply two greedy people who believed they were smarter than everyone else. And in the end, they built the trap that caught them. The greatest revenge I've discovered isn't loud. It isn't cruel. And it isn't public. It's peace. It's planting flowers in your own garden. It's drinking coffee on your own porch. It's knowing that when your heart was broken, you chose dignity instead of destruction. Nathan and Lauren didn't ruin my life. They simply stepped out of the way. And because they did, my real life finally began.